My beloved Madridistas, welcome back to Madrid. Sorry about the voice. I have my post-match voice, although it's not too bad this time. Okay, let's talk about the match last night. I'll give you my thoughts. This was a very, very tense match. Not a great match in terms of play, but a great match in terms of goals. I think the goals were absolutely top shelf. This was, all things considered, I think a satisfactory performance. It was by no means a great performance, but considering all of the adjustments that we've had to make and all the issues that we're dealing with, I think it was a satisfactory result. Leaves everything open for the return leg, but definitely gives us a very good fighting chance. So I think overall, a good performance. There are some nights where you win just by pedigree, history. Look, last night we won because we are Real Madrid, because it was a European night, a Champions League night at the Bernabeu, and sometimes it really just comes down to that character, that soul, which is part of the fabric of the club, the pedigree, the history of the club. So I think to a great extent, the shirt won the match last night. But let me give you my thoughts and some of the takeaways from last night's match. Thanks for joining me. Let's get started. Madridistas, welcome back. Okay, let's talk about this really cagey, tense match last night in the Bernabeu. Okay, let's start with the lineup, and I'll give you my thoughts. Now, Ancelotti came out with Courtois, Mendy as left back, Fede had to play right back. That's kind of a debatable decision, and one of the things I want to discuss. Rudiger and Asensio as center backs, pretty acceptable. Then in the center of the pitch, he had Tchouaméni, so a combination we don't see very often, which is Camavinga and Tchouaméni together in the midfield. It's not something he's done very often, but he played it last night with Brahim in the middle of the pitch, and then up front, Vini, Kylian, and Rodrigo. Now, when I saw the lineup, the obvious questions were, one, do you really want to play Fede as right back? Now, it worked out very well because Fede is an extraordinary player, but it really kind of left me wondering, Fede is so effective in the midfield. Was this the right decision? And we'll kind of never know how the match would have gone otherwise. But he opted to do it. Fede did a very good job. But it is one of the questions that you could throw out there. Could we have played Fede in the midfield and let Lucas Vázquez again try on as right back? He didn't do that. Another question was, in the middle of the pitch, when I saw Brahim, I thought, he's obviously a wonderful player, and he was practically man of the match last night. But my initial reaction was, maybe Modric would have been. You need a kind of brain in the middle of the pitch, and it's something that Jude can do, something that Kroos used to do beautifully, and something that Luka Modric can do. But in terms of really carrying the team and directing play, was Brahim going to be able to do that? That was another one of the question marks, because I thought Modric could have done that. I think even Arda Güler could have played that sort of kind of quasi number 10 position. So that was kind of a question mark. It turned out well because Brahim played brilliantly, but that was one of the things I was wondering about, who's going to own this midfield for us. But it turned out, I think, satisfactory as an experiment. In terms of the match itself, look, this was cagey, this was tense, which is what you would expect. The goal came so early. We were almost unprepared for it. This was just a fantastic pass by Fede, brilliant vision, and then Rodrigo's finish was just exquisite. He's so good on the ball. When Rodrigo's coming at you, you have to back off because he's just so quick, such a good dribbler. But of course, that gives him the space that he needs to put off the shot. This was a phenomenal goal, a phenomenal strike. Now, after the goal, interesting, Atleti is a very well-oiled machine. They know how to play. They have a system, and they look so similar every time they play because they really just have a style. Now, after the goal, Atleti didn't, go out and try to attack like the kind of reaction you would expect from other clubs. Atleti is a team that always prioritizes defending above all. And so after the goal, they didn't, come at us, even the few minutes after the goal, I think we were kind of in control. We felt comfortable. And all of that started to change around the 20th minute. I think in the 20th minute, Atleti started to have more possession. They started to push up. We started to have to defend more. The ball lasted a bit less in our boots. And then the goal came in the 1-1 came in the 32nd minute. Now this was Julián Álvarez is a player that when he came to Atleti, I didn't know that. I had seen him play a little bit at City, but not that much. And I had never really seen anything extraordinary, so I thought maybe there was a bit of hype. But no, he's having an incredible season with Atleti, and he's turning out to be a hell of a player. But the goal that he scored was just one of those, what the hell do you do? I mean, if you try 100 of those in practice, I don't know how many would go in, at least this way, because this ball curved in the second post just in the last second and hit just the inside of the post. This was one of the most precise strikes you can see in the sport. So a phenomenal goal that kind of came out of nowhere, but it did change the tempo of the match, because from the moment after the Atleti goal until about the 10th minute of the second half, Atleti were in control. They were in control. We were doing most of the defending. They were very comfortable in possession. We just had to sit back. We would recover the ball. It was very frustrating because we'd recover the ball, and before we could even string 3 passes together, we had lost it again. We would lose the ball very quickly and then have to go back into defense. It was very, very frustrating during that about 20-minute period. And this is why the Brahim goal in the 56th minute was so key, because this goal came exactly when we needed it, okay? Exactly when Atleti was most in control of the match, exactly when we looked most vulnerable, when the crowd was getting impatient, when this match did not look like what we wanted. At exactly that moment, Brahim comes up with a goal that only he could have seen. He was properly defended, 2 or 3 defenders in front of him, incredible technique to get past them, and then just so much awareness to place the ball in the second post so accurately. This was, when you're not playing well, but you have players that have unbelievable, extraordinary skill, this is what you can do. You can find little moments and create something out of nothing, and this is the advantage of having unbelievably technical players. Brahim's goal was not only timely, it was incredibly timely, but it was also just a beautiful goal. Now, afterwards, Luka Modric came in for Camavinga, who had a pretty poor game. We'll talk about that now. And with Modric coming in and with the score, in our favor, we did start to kind of control the match and the tempo a little bit more again. So as we went into the last few minutes of the match, I think we were more in control. We did manage to create a few chances, and Kylian had an optimal situation at the very, very end of the match. And just made the wrong decision, but that could have been the 3-1. But overall, like I say, a satisfactory performance. I think all things considered, not spectacular, but a useful, satisfactory performance all around, I think. In terms of players and takeaways, we can do this quickly. Okay, Courtois, look, I think he played well. There's nothing he could have done in the goal. He's a very tall guy. He's like 6'7", but even at full stretch, you can't cover the entirety of the goal. And like I say, the precision of they call him La Araña, the spider. Julián Álvarez, his shot was so precise that I don't think anybody could have done anything about that. I think he played well with the ball at his feet, and Atleti pressed him on a number of occasions. They were very aggressive, pressing all the way to Courtois. So he was under pressure with the ball at his feet, but I think he handled it pretty well. So I think overall Courtois, I think, played well. Mendy, I think, defended very well. He had a decent match. I just think there were, again, some moments where he takes too many risks in the back. I mean, I've mentioned this before a few months ago in previous videos. Mendy is a very, gifted player, but sometimes he dribbles at the wrong time in the wrong place, and he got away with it last night. We didn't lose any crazy balls in crazy places, but he did risk it, I think, unnecessarily on some occasions. So I think he defended well, but was just a little bit too risky on the ball. Rudiger, I think played very well, a very solid match. No, mistakes that I can think of. I think played a solid match. There's one thing that I will say, and let me know your thoughts. There is a slight hint, and I don't think I'm making this up. He's just a little bit less aggressive. I find him just a touch more tentative than usual. And I don't know if this has to do with kind of fatigue or any kind of physical ailment, but he played a good match, don't get me wrong. but there's just something a little bit less aggressive in terms of Rudiger recently. Okay, Asensio played very, very well, and he had a couple of really critical one-on-one situations where he had to track back. There was one in particular against Julian Alvarez that, Julian had the advantage. It looked like he was going to get away from him. Asensio managed to catch up, stop him, and do it without fouling. It was, pretty impressive, and he got a standing ovation for that. I think Asensio had a very complete game. Again, nothing flashy, but just so consistent and so solid. Okay, Fede, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, this guy's just unbelievable. He had, if I had to give him a grade from 1 to 10, I'd probably give him a 9. I think he was just spectacular. There's something about this player's awareness in terms of where to be on the pitch, the timing in terms of when to tackle, when to press the ball, when to push, when to pull back. He's such a phenomenal player. He's always in the right place at the right time and has a tireless spirit. Fede, it's extraordinary. This is not his position, but he played like, one of the best right backs in the world yesterday, and I don't know how he does that. But Fede, I thought, was just extraordinary. Also, his long distribution is just wonderful. He's had to fill in that gap. Toni Kroos, those long diagonal distributions. Fede's getting really, really good at these. So he's combining short play with long play really, really well. It's just an amazing player. Okay, Tchouaméni played really well, and I've been critical of him. You guys know this, especially when he plays center back. He proved again yesterday that his position is pivot. He had a very, very good game. His second half was amazing. We watched the game at home afterwards when we came back from the stadium. Tchouaméni had an amazing second half. He had a very, very good game. I think in matches that are kind of mostly positional, which was the case yesterday, not crazy matches that are back and forth. In those, I think Tchouaméni gets caught out. But in positional matches, I think Tchouaméni is a very, very good pivot, and he proved it again yesterday. Thought he played very well. Okay, Camavinga. Now, it breaks my heart to say this because Camavinga is one of my favorite players. I bought his jersey at the beginning of the year. I love Camavinga, but he didn't have his night. I mean, he was very slow in distribution. He kind of felt like he was wrong place, right. He felt a little bit slow, behind, maybe a second behind every play. It really just wasn't his night. I think that Camavinga is a player that depends enormously on his physical condition. His style of play is very aggressive, high intensity. It requires a lot of elasticity and energy. And I think if Camavinga is not 100% physically fit, I think it's more noticeable than other players, and I think maybe that's what's going on because he has yet to really kind of come back to the form that we've seen him before. So I think Camavinga had a poor match. Okay, Brahim was exceptional. He was probably man of the match along with Fede. He was just exceptional. Now, sometimes I had the feeling that he was carrying the ball a little bit too long. In situations that would have required distribution rather than him holding and carrying the ball. There were, a few situations where I thought he could have distributed rather than carry, but he had a phenomenal match. He was a difference maker, fought so hard. By the way, one of the things I want to mention is that he should have been substituted much earlier. In the second half, you could tell he was completely fried. I mean, he was fried. You can tell when a player is just literally done. And he would take a little bit of extra time getting up. You could tell he was tired. I could swear he was almost indicating to the bench to be subbed. But that substitution took 15 minutes longer than it should have. But in any case, I think Brahim had a wonderful match. He was a difference maker, a player that can create something out of nothing. And he was one of the heroes of last night. So I think Brahim was fabulous. Okay, Vini. Now, Vini, look, he was... In the first half, I give him a lot of credit for his defensive work because he defended a lot in the first half. He did a lot of chasing, a lot of backtracking. In the second half, he started to take players on a little bit more one-on-one. But I have to say there's something that I need to mention about Vini, and you guys can give me your thoughts. One thing that bothers me is Vini's very explosive, and when he has those explosions of speed, and he gets to the end line, he gets behind the defender because he's so quick. He kicks the ball, says, let's see who gets there first. And Vini gets there first because he's so quick. When he gets to the end line, he's already gotten behind the defender. And then instead of passing or crossing or shooting or doing something, he just stops at the end line. The defender then catches up with him again, stands in front of him again, and then Vini just plays the ball back out to the periphery of the box. Now, to me, that's just a waste, okay? Because if you are going to commit the energy and get around your defender and get behind him, and you get to the end line before he does, do something with that. Do something with that. That ball needs to be crossed. That ball needs to be passed to the center, or you need to cut inside and shoot, but you need to do something with that. I think just getting to the end line, waiting for the defender to stand in front of you, only to play the ball back out, is just kind of a waste of what you've just done. So I think that those kind of things, bother me a little bit. I think, Vini is a wonderful player and, was okay last night. He's not quite the player he was last year. And I know you guys are going to give me a lot of shit in the comment section. And some of you guys, really, give it to me when you don't agree. You can tell me what you think, but Vini, it's just something a little off. He's taking players on less often. His decision-making not quite there. Just not quite as present. He used to dominate every match. He was sort of the center of attention. Not the case anymore. He's just not quite the player he was last year. So let me know what you think about that. Okay, Kylian. Now, Kylian, it's funny because when you were watching this game, poor Kylian, he was in the number 9 position, constantly surrounded by 4 or 5 Atleti defenders. It's just ridiculous. You couldn't even get the ball to him. Even if he received the ball, he was just completely surrounded, but you couldn't even get the ball to him. He was constantly surrounded. The only time he found space was when he would drift to the wings, which wasn't very often, but it just wasn't his night. And then, he had that mistake at the end of the match where his decision-making was poor. He should have passed to Vini. That could have been 3-1. I think he tried. He looks physically sharp. He looks incredibly quick. But I just think it wasn't his night. He was very well marked, tried, nothing worked. It just wasn't his night. Okay, Rodrigo. Rodrigo was really good. And Rodrigo is kind of on the up. If you notice in the last few matches, Rodrigo's sort of on the up. Very nice momentum trend there. I think he played really, really well. The goal was brilliant. And also, we've discussed this in previous videos. Rodrigo's technique, his controls are insane. There was the play that could have been called a penalty when he comes in on the right, very long pass, and the way he kills that pass directionally so that the ball goes straight into his sprint behind the defender. That first touch was insane. So he gave us some wonderful, moments of incredible technique. I think Rodrigo played really, really well and was a difference maker. The goal was fantastic. And like I say, he's on the up. So Rodrigo's been very, very positive lately. Luka Modric, I'll mention him because he played enough minutes. He always brings so much oxygen and common sense to our play. When he came in, it was exactly the right time to bring him in. I would have brought him in maybe a little bit earlier because, like I say, Brahim was fried. But Modric did a great job. His distribution's excellent, and he always brings this kind of calm, serene demeanor to our play. He just brings so much common sense to our play. I think he was great. The result look is okay. Like I say, is okay. It's not great, but it's okay. I think if you consider all the injuries and the bans and all the kind of experiments we've had to conduct, I think this was a good result. We won again last night. Just felt like one of those nights that we won because we are Real Madrid, and we won because that's the Bernabeu, and because it was a Champions League night, and that's just what we do. So it felt like pedigree is real, football heritage is real, and it raised its head last night, and it was wonderful to see. I think we can make it to the next round. I think that we can come out of the Metropolitano with a draw, maybe even a victory. Don't forget that by then we'll have Jude back. Fede will probably, hopefully, be fully recovered. So I'm hopeful for the return leg. I think we can make it. Now, let's not forget the path. The path to the Champions League is insanely difficult. It's crazy difficult. Arsenal just put 7 past their opponents last night. This is going to be brutally difficult. We have to play when the track to the Champions League final is this difficult. You just have to take one match at a time, and that's what we need to do. Just concentrate one match at a time, and then open your eyes and see where you are. But I think we can get through this despite the very, very difficult path that we have ahead. You're looking at Arsenal, then possibly Liverpool or PSG, and then possibly Bayern Munich or Barca in the final. That's just insane. But we never have it easy in this tournament. But the harder you make it for us, the better we seem to do. Okay, I need to mention the Ancelotti thing once again. Now, in addition to the questions about the lineup, the Brahim thing really pissed me off, and I was yelling at. It was so upsetting because Brahim was clearly done, and it took Ancelotti so long to make the change, so long to bring Enrique in. Enrique is. I'm going to call him the 87-minute man because it's the only time this poor kid ever comes on the pitch. So I'm still very worried about Ancelotti's decision-making. And one final word I'll mention about the refs. This is a ref last night that I've complimented on many occasions. I think he's one of the better refs in the world the last few years. And it's funny because last night he managed to piss me off on a few occasions. But even the calls that didn't go our way, just as you're getting pissed off at the ref, the decision started to kind of go in our favor potentially. So I don't know. I felt the difference between playing in La Liga and playing in Europe is just night and day. In Europe, you can play the opponent, and that's all you have to worry about. In La Liga, your mind is kind of, sort of, you're constantly thinking about the ref, and because he's always going to change the match for you. So it was very refreshing, and I think that despite some of the mistakes I think he made, I think the reffing team did a good job. So anyway, look, those are my thoughts. I think it was a patch-up job, but I think we did well. I think we're in a good position, and I think it's a positive result to take to the Wanda Metropolitano. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section. As always, thanks for joining me, and as always, a la Madrid.